Chapter 4. Poor Company. The pain reached out of the darkness and held Lyla down. A burning in her lungs, smoke in her nose, salt in her eyes, a dagger in her leg. It rose in a pulsing crescendo, and when she opened her eyes, the colours bled together to make rainbows. It must have been how Pa felt after waking from one of his many drunken stupors, asleep on the boards to save them the mess. Was she on the boards now? Was she home again? Where? Her voice came out in a whisper. There was a pad of paws and a crunch of leaves as two spindly legs came into view, pink as rats' tails. She blinked. There was a rat's tail. "You're awake! I has done it!" Those same legs danced a horizontal jig, fluffy thighs bouncing up and down. "I told you!" She tried again. "Where am I?" "Please, please!" Thin hands pulled her to sitting. Her head spun, heavy with the world around her. They were amongst trees, some still green in the early winter, the ground covered in dead leaves all crisp and brown. Snow filled every corner in untouched piles of icy chill, emissaries of the bleak to come. "Where are we?" "In the hills, lady, to the south." A vision fought the logic in her brain. Very little made sense. What was she even looking at? The forest continued to blur and focus, the creature standing over her in the centre of it all. She'd never dreamt of a talking rat before, let alone one so big. It smiled back at her with its head at a tilt, its pink paws attentive like a squirrel's. "What are you?" "Oh, I apologise." He took a bow. "I'm Eggs, lady. I saved you." Of course, Eggs. That cleared up nothing. She tried to stand, but the pain was paralysing. Her leg had been bandaged with white sailcloth, a red smudge on either side. If it was a dream, then it was a vivid one. "What happened to me?" The rat leaned in and tilted his head again. "I saved you, lady. From the others. I bandaged you up." He grinned through yellow teeth. There were wrinkles all over his face, and his white-grey fur was a tangled mess. He reminded her of one of the elders, equally as weathered and equally as vague. There had been stories of hunters visited in the night by spirit gods, come to warn them of impending blight or to trick them into betraying their kin. What was the meaning of this dream, and why did it hurt so much? She tried to pull her memories together and remember the morning before, her thoughts wandering to the breakfast she had had with Jenny and Willa. "If you spend any more time with those old men, you'll likely grow a beard," Jenny had said, mixing pancakes in a bowl. "But I like fishing, Ma, and they tell me stories of the world wide. Their lessons are better than any book." "She's practical, Jen, just like me." Willa gave her a pancake-addled grin. "Besides, bow hunting is bow hunting. Fish or deer, it's got value. She's a natural." "Yes, but are they teaching her to make friends? To be kind?" She raised an eyebrow. "To talk to boys? Or are they teaching her to be an old curmudgeon?" "Oh, aye, she's got an old soul for sure, but she's still our little girl." They'd had the same conversation every week, and every week nothing had changed. Lyla would continue to skip school and practice fishing with the bowfolk, out on the estuary or in the field. The old hunters would teach her bushcraft, the weather eye, camping and archery, never asking her questions that she didn't want to answer. They treated her as one of their own, not a child, but something weathered, something old. That time on the river had been precious to her, her hands only comfortable when holding one of their elegant bows, her mind only at ease when intently focused. That morning her mind had been on shooting fish as they swam out to sea. It wasn't an easy way to hunt, but it was their tradition. "A fish arrowed was a fish won," old Simon used to say. "Killing should never be easy." She caught 3 already that morning before the rats came. Arrows had flown, people had screamed, and the fishermen had tried to lend their support, sending arrows both ways. Before Lyla could do the same, a rat had sat in front of her with a knife in its hand. This rat. She gasped, tasting the tang of blood in her throat as the forest sharpened into full detail. The rat crinkled his brow and raised his palms, too late to avoid a colossal kick from her one good leg. He rolled, screeching through the filth, his arms flailing and mud in the air. "Ladies!" She dragged herself backwards with numb hands, searching for something, anything to defend herself. Just before her arms gave way, she slammed against a downed tree devoid of leaves and peppered with branches. She thrust one of its lost limbs between them and growled, "Keep away! I won't be one of your victims!" The rat lay there less than a stone's throw away, a shaggy pile of grey with stick limbs and a tail jutting out. He moaned, then flumped onto his back, grabbing at his stomach. "Why? I dragged you uphill, long ways from village and long ways from harm. I keeps you safe." The forest swayed as her consciousness began to slip from her grasp, but she clenched her fists against it, as if holding the main sheet in a storm. "I'm not your food." The rat rolled onto his side, half caked in mud and leaves, his beady eyes darting about the undergrowth. "Quiet, lady, please!" He hushed her with an index finger to his teeth. "'Tis dangerous." He wasn't wrong. It wasn't called the Goblin Coast for nothing. Travelling this far off the beaten track was likely to invite unpleasant guests. All forests were cursed under the bay blue sky, after all. When she was little, Jenny would tell us stories of children getting lost in the wood and never returning, getting eaten by goblins or perhaps becoming goblins themselves. She hadn't believed it, not until she had learnt the truth of her own origin. "I know what you are," she lowered her voice through gritted teeth. "A forest spirit, something evil." Egg stood with his palms raised. "It's not like that, lady. I didn't stabs and I didn't drowns. I saved you." Saved her? It was the rats that had attacked her village, the rats that had put an arrow through her leg. If he had saved her, then it was only from himself, and she doubted that privilege would last very long out here in the snow and with nothing to eat. He wasn't a hero. He just wasn't hungry yet. "I'm not a child. You can't trick me," came out louder than she had hoped, all hard and full of grit. "You're a monster." Birds escaped into the pale sky, her heart pulsing a mad jig. Willa had always told her, when confronted by a bear or a wolf or worse, make sure you're big, be loud and full of thorns. Not worth their risk, not worth their reward. She tried to get big, to get off the ground and get moving, but as she attempted to ease herself to standing, she crumpled. Even with the branch as a crutch, her leg was useless, her body crying out for stillness and rest. A cold sweat ran across her brow, and she collapsed against the downed tree, her every movement an agony. Not like this, she thought. Of all places, not here and not now. Eggs leaned into her vision. You need suns and moons and suns again before you can walk. He's no good. She tried to swing the branch, but he was right. It was no good. Her strength was waning, and she could barely lift the skinny twig she was using as a weapon. What if she died between these trees, consumed by this thing? What if he strung her up and ate her whole, or cut her up and cooked her alive? It was a fate she knew too well, a fate she had witnessed far back in her fleeting memories. What are you going to do with me? He looked pained. Rats are coming. We go south and over the mountains, to safeties. There was genuine panic in his beady eyes, and as they darted about the brush, his ears twitched and listened. It was as if he really was concerned about her, as if he really did want to help her. But that was an absurd thought, merely the empty hope of a child. Nothing good came from the unknown, nothing safe. Yet, what choice did she really have? I've got to go back. I've got to find the others. His whiskers wilted. No, they is all gone, all dead. There is no turnings back. That's not possible. A voice cracked at the edges. All those strong people, all those families. There must have been someone. My parents must be alive. You need to take me back. The faces of the sailors and fishermen nodded in her mind. Old Simon used to say, always tend your nets, Lie. Finger in his greasy beard, spinning curls like wave crests. How many of her kin had been caught between the rats and the sea? How many were scattered to the shore and the reeds? She had to turn back. Something seemed to break in Eggs. He shook his head and kicked the leaves, talking to himself. They'll cook me, they wills. Not my fault. Stab not drowns. He paused. Town is dead, lady. Man and woman, they is all dead. Her chest hardened as she pushed down a rush of thoughts, the branch in her hand forcing splinters into her palms. Why would you say that? They are all good people, strong people. We have to go back. The grubby creature came closer and placed a spindly hand on her shoulder. Town is dead, lady. Can't change that. Change? Lyla, just promise me this. Jenny was pushing leftover pancake mix between her fingers, her apron white with flour. Maybe tomorrow you could try something new? Just something little, like maybe walk past your school on the way to the boats. Maybe stay a little for a lesson or half. You never know, darling. You never know. Willa gave her a knowing wink, but his brow soon crinkled in agreement. Worse things have happened at sea, Lie. Can't hurt to try. For some reason, on that day of all days, something had softened in her. After everything the two of them had done for her, the meals, the stories, the tears and the hugs, maybe it was time to change. Maybe it was time to try. It had been a naive thought. Change wouldn't keep her alive, not now and not ever. She couldn't afford to let go of her strength or lose her hardness, not with monsters on the shore and evil in the forests. She ground the splinters in her palms, her eyes focused on both the memory of her adoptive parents and the arrow that had fallen into her life that day. Then the rat hugged her. He didn't strangle or stab or drown, but he hugged her. It was a foreign feeling, damp and mouldy, a great mat of soft hair over a bony thin frame, like being hugged by a daisy bush. Could such a foul creature, made by the forest to hunt and kill and murder, really want to help her? To save her? Eventually, in amongst all those warm clumps, her hands fell on the hilt of a knife and answered her question. She shoved him over and took the blade. "And how many of my friends did you kill with this? How many good men lie at the bottom of the river because of you?" He scurried backwards, his arms and legs flailing. No, I don't do that no more. I saved girl." He looked as if he were drowning, clawing for breath and pale. "Please, lady, please. You might think you saved me, but really, you displaced me. You cut me off from the others, untied my bow line and let me crash upon the rocks. I could have helped. I might have saved someone." She pointed the knife, out of focus and crooked, heavy in a tiring grip. "You didn't cut my throat, but you let them die. And Pa would have said, I know he will say, that's the same thing." His chest pumped up and down, his arms held back to keep himself upright. He was a mouse in a trap, a vole caught in an owl's talons, limp and helpless. Had he really known what he was doing, or was she arguing with the wind? A breeze whipped between them, and he stayed there, dead still. "Didn't know, lady." He swallowed. "Took you to safety, but didn't know." Lyla knew, yet as hard as she tried to summon the faces of the townsfolk again, to remember their words and feel the ache of what she had lost, she was pulled back to a different time, to a young girl lost in the forest, surviving on berries and hiding from wolves, to the foxes that bid her no attention, the badger that would waddle home at night, and the bears in the distance that would warn her where not to tread, to the innocent creatures that had guided her, despite their teeth. And against her better judgment, against the stones in her heart and the splinters in her fists, she believed him. Not that an inch of him was innocent, or that he was anything close to safe, but that, for that brief moment, he was a blessing. A mad, dangerous, mutant of a blessing that might just save her. She believed that he believed he was her hero. "Damn it!" She pushed back her final tears, stabbed the knife into the dirt, then collapsed with exhaustion. He was all she had. The two of them lay there for a moment, the blue sky ferrying clouds above, a tall pillar of black smoke muddying their view. "We need to go upriver," said Lyla, "to Littletown Roost. If it is how you say it is, then that is where my parents will be. They will have gone to warn the others." Egg spoke to the sky. "Rats are coming, lady. We go south." "No, we warn them, to give them a fighting chance. You owe them that." The wind whistled through the trees, stirring subtle whirlwinds of snow that peppered her where she lay. She didn't complain. She was almost asleep and subtly numb. Still, one question lingered. "Why did you spare me?" Eggs let his limbs fall flat in the mud, brushing it aside like a turtle in the sand. "Mad God say I'm crazy, but truthfully, I no knows. Maybe you was too pretty to kill." He was entirely insane and reminded her of an old idiom Willa used to say when he was sure things were going to get far worse. "As sure as eggs is eggs." The rat rolled over and peered at her through the leaves. "Exactly, lady. Exactly.